Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the LEC breakdown, of course, being for week 5. I hope you guys all enjoy. It was a crazy weekend. Nonetheless, we saw some pretty crazy things as we enter our last 4 weeks. A lot of teams there on the line. Now, we have pretty much our top 2, top 3, maybe even 4 teams out there, but a lot of teams competing for that desired last 6 spot to make playoffs, and some big things happening to shake up things maybe a little bit. You know, Rogue has a slight, very off chance if they maybe win out or win 7 of 8 to actually make playoffs still, so don't count them out, although you maybe could. Alongside them though, right, only 2 games ahead of them will be Fnatic, and again, they split this weekend once more, and from here on out, 4 more weeks, they sit on 3 wins. We can probably all argue that 7 wins is not going to be enough to make playoffs. You usually need 8 or 9, maybe in some cases actually 10 wins to make it, so it could be argued that Fnatic can actually need some 2-0 weekends here pretty shortly. Alongside that, of course, G2 falling short to Origin on a win streak right now of 5 games. They look incredible. Excel doing Excel things still, you know, unfortunately enough, but Misfits right alongside them. 0-2 weekends for both those teams, and Misfits have now lost 4 of their last 5, and there is certainly something wrong with this team that I have seen so far. But I hope you guys all enjoy. As always, going to break down our 5 awards out there: our MVP players, our MVP teams, our plays of the week, our underwhelming teams, and our underwhelming players. I hope you guys all enjoy. Feel free to leave a comment down below what you think, and let's get into it, guys. Of course, first of all, our teams of the week out there, and there are many of them, the first of which has to be Origin. The only team thus far, of course, to beat G2. Now, let me preface by saying G2 is still looking stellar. I would still be very surprised if a roster can actually take a win against G2, and I think we're going to expect very few losses overall from G2 this split, but this will be one of them, and Origin played nearly the perfect game. They pushed that mid game so hard, they shoved their lead, and in order to do so, I think in this game, if it did go late, of course, any game late against G2, any game in general against G2, you give them a chance whether you're not going to close out that Nexus, and I think Origin played it out so well. You know, Nukeduck going out crazy on that Zed pick. Of course, the 1v1 first blood against Caps. They snowball him. Patrick doing just what Patrick does. I think very solid performance in weekend from him. I think Cold had one of the best weekends we've seen of any players this split so far, especially on Gragas against Excel. Yes, he may have kill-stealed a few of those kills on Gragas, but still a 5-1 Karthus against G2. They played this game to near perfection, what they arguably had to do to beat G2. They close it out fast and don't give them the chance to come back. But again, either way, a stellar performance against G2 as well as Excel. That's why they're my team of the week. But alongside them, very close, is SK. This team over Vitality, over Fnatic, and 2 different circumstances. Against Vitality, I think it was actually Attila on that Caitlyn pick that suffered, and Crown Shot took full advantage of that lineup, and I think they did so well. Selfmade also deserving here for a shout out, as he has been every weekend so far. He allows his players to actually push those lanes, have a bit more trust in their game, and SK 2 very solid victories. And against Fnatic, it was actually them going behind in the bot lane very early on. We've seen time and time again, especially these last 2 to 3 weeks, Fnatic needs to actually feed Reckless so far ahead to actually have a chance in their games. Thus far, we might see something different from them in the future, but still, Fnatic has proven if they cannot actually shove Reckless so far in the lead, they tend to lose based off overextensions and overcommits, and well, that's actually how SK played this game. They waited for the mistakes and the missteps by Fnatic, and Whippo, I have to say, he misstepped quite a few times here, and it did cost them the game. So great plays by both these teams. Origin, SK, certainly your teams of the week, but alongside them, MVPs of the week, and there's there's actually many MVPs this week. I think Selfmade would be an obvious choice. You know, him week in and week out has been an MVP performer for this SK lineup. Crown Shot as well, though, this week on his Jinx had a great job and a great impact for this SK roster. Alongside that, though, my overall MVP, I have to say, would be Origin's Cold. He had a great, perfect game on Gragas. Yes, like I said before, a few kill steals here and there, but his snowball of that AP Gragas was insane. I believe 8-0 was the final scoreline there, and not to mention a 5-1 Karthus against G2. He kind of just added and packed those stats for Patrick and Nukeduck. Nukeduck probably available for an MVP slot as well for his performance against G2, but the entire team, like I said before as well, looked borderline perfect against G2, and a 2-0 victory means a lot of MVPs for that roster currently. And I could even say, I don't know if you guys saw it as well, Alfari's engagements on Kennen, not the best scoreline overall, but his engages allowed so many picks from the damage dealing roster and composition they had. So I could say just about a number of those guys on that Origin roster deserving of the MVPs. But I will say definitely a candidate as well, a team who went 1-1 this this week and definitely was upset by that Origin roster. Jankos, early game ganks, and especially on Elise as well, but Jankos altogether had a stellar weekend. I know the Lee Sin scoreline's not going to tell you too much against Origin, but still, his early game ganks on Lee Sin actually kept G2 in that game, I believe, a bit longer and offered them chances to come back. It was just not enough. Again, Origin shutting down just about everything against G2, but against Misfits, just like every team this weekend, they annihilated Misfits, and it was actually him on Elise having 3 successful ganks within 6 minutes. Jankos had a stellar weekend besides the 1-1 split for these guys and deserving of MVP for sure. But speaking of those as well, we definitely had some plays of the week, and entering our first one, it will be Nuke Duck. I think that's what kind of gave them the motivation to actually take on the aggressive G2 lineup, which many teams have in the early game, right? Taking on Perks, taking on Caps. We see both those players, of course, with their aggression having some missteps here and there. It has never cost them the game up until now. Here is Nuke Duck though on Zed, 100-0. First blood on Caps.
I talked about how far he should have pressure. Ooh, how we have the flash in.
Caps doesn't have the 6. So much damage. Caps is dead. Look at the moves. Look at the plays, Venius. What was that?
We talked about the level 6 mark for Nuke Duck.
And very similar to our LCS drama. I don't know if you guys watched the LCS. It was actually double lift. He had a 60-second clip just like the one I'm about to show you guys before their game versus TSM. He called out Sven. He called out TSM for being under too much pressure. Liquid then lost their first game of the split to TSM. And very ironically enough, I guess not really the same way here, but it was actually the huge drama between Upset and Attila, continuing on and on. I'm not going to give my opinion on who I think has had a better split so far. They are both stellar players, but Attila definitely won this round after Upset said this, and then of course we have this clip I'll show you guys right after, back to back.
First time I faced off versus Attila in an official match was Challenger Series, and we 2-0'd them in the regular season. Before I just played with him in solo queue, but I didn't really think he would be like a pro player, because he was honestly really bad. He doesn't really use his brain too much when playing.
Brainless, I mean...
So I don't really respect his playstyle too much.
I guess you can call me that because he might have traumas from the past, right? When he was like getting bullied under turret.
He talks a bit too much for his skill, I think. He's barely top 5 AD carry right now.
That stopwatch to stay alive. Memento will get dunked down. Killer Instinct used by Attila. He manages to
oh my god!
Almost takes on
Look at him go!
Attila does it!
GG.
Upset! Never trash talk me again, you little... That's what you are, Upset! You little...
You wanted to go max check or?
Yes, please put that on mic check.
Misfits, that's all I gotta say really. Misfits is having some huge issues. We knew about this the last week, maybe the last week and a half. Unfortunately enough, we just don't know. I cannot tell you guys what the issue is. Maybe it's composition wise. These guys have struggled so much in the past 2 weeks, borderline the last 3 weeks as well. I can't even really compare it to too much. Of their last 4 losses, guys, 3 of which have come sub 28 minutes, 26 minutes, 27, and a 28-minute loss this past weekend. Their only other loss as well of those last 4 losses was the one team you do not want to take late, but a team that will allow you to actually take the game late versus Splice. And they lose that. If you guys remember that game versus Splice as well, it's actually Misfits coming away with a stolen Elder into a stolen semi-snuck Baron. A Baron plus Elder buff, and they still could not finish that game. There is certainly something so wrong with this roster, and I cannot point it out exactly, but there's an overarching issue it's pretty obvious. I just can't name the individual micro issue right now. This team cannot finish when they need to, and they can't pull ahead a lead, but it's also teams just straight up beating these guys so fast, we really can't fully understand the problem besides composition-wise. So we've seen some questionable picks. I think the Zach pick not suiting these guys right now, especially with a skill shot lack on this roster, but Misfits is definitely the most underwhelming team I have seen this week, last week, for quite some time now, and definitely need to call them out. But on top of that, underwhelming players as well. Going to be a surprise player who is certainly a very good player, but that's why the underwhelming category is for surprises out there too. I usually use this underwhelming category for players who are just towards the bottom in general, but this one being a bit surprising. It's actually Attila. We saw a fall off this week against SK on his Caitlyn, and I think the entire roster didn't really get much going in that matchup, but especially Attila, I think definitely a decent downgrade from what we usually expect out of this guy, and he did bounce back though. Let me give him this. Underwhelming for that matchup, maybe costing the game against SK, but there were plenty of mistakes in that matchup, as there are with most League of Legends games out there, but he bounced back better than most players ever would. His, I think it was actually Deathless Kaisa against against Schalke to kind of feed that rivalry we talked about earlier as well. Defeating Upset, tells him to be quiet and whatever else he worded there as well. That is what you are, Upset. He definitely bounced back immensely. I mean, just to show you guys as well, not too much of an underwhelming player. Just I want to clarify that against SK, yes, but he bounced back crazy by 26 minutes, I believe, 340 CS against Schalke. This man bounced back like no other and takes down Schalke as well. Still a very impressive roster, as is Vitality defeating them. So hope you guys all enjoy. As always, my name is Jake. I hope you enjoyed the LEC Week 5 breakdown. We are seeing some crazy things. I do not think Fnatic can split another weekend. I think they need to make at least probably 2 of these remaining 4 weekends 2-0 weekends. If they go 0-2 one more time, they are out of playoffs guaranteed. I still think Rogue have great potential to pick off some other teams out there. I do think teams like Rogue, Excel, Fnatic are going to take teams out of playoffs. Well, they don't really have a very far shot themselves at actually making it. So we'll see what teams they take down and take other teams with them as well. Anyways, hope you guys all enjoy. I'll see you back here next week. My name is Jake, and until then, I'll see you next time.